Fucking do it.
And we are live.
Live and live.
Welcome to
Inside Movies Galore interview edition.
View with Ambriz. This is episode number 31. Chris, welcome to the show. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get going?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. Just a lifelong horror fan, filmmaker, and now currently communications specialist. And it's just been a lifelong dream to kind of just get out there and, make special effects and make films or try to make films and getting into the whole film festival realm, learning all those routes, and then also kind of dealing with getting involved with the distribution elements of it and all that kind of stuff. So we're coming along over the years and stuff like that. Still, something that I learn more and more as I go through every time. It's one of those things. Just as a filmmaker, you just come up a bunch of challenges that you got to figure out how to do it. That's basically it. I think we're on project number 13, which is Muerte Tales of Horror. It's a kind of a horror anthology that we've been working on for about a couple of years now, and we've wrapped up almost every element of post-production, and we should have it out hopefully the early part of this upcoming year in 2018.
Sweet. Yeah, I saw the cover for that. You had kind of like a Tales from the Crypt sort of thing going on there, right? Like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, we were trying to figure a good way to kind of make it not like an anthology where it just constantly breaks, but it has kind of a flowing narrative to it, and it all kind of wraps into another storyline.
We did a Christmas Horror Story last week, and that sounds a little bit like how they did that movie.
Yeah, that was a good example of that. Creepshow kind of did a little bit, but it was still kind of segmented in a...
It was very self-contained, yeah.
Right, yeah. But all these kind of stories are kind of happening within the main story, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of an interesting challenge, because we had already kind of worked on one project for a while and raised money and did all that, and found out that they weren't really interested in our short projects. But if we could combine, another couple of shorts, tie them together into a anthology, they would be more than willing to, give it a go.
Well, whenever you can repurpose something towards a more productive goal, like that's always like a great thing to do. Like, especially if you're on like a budget, or if you have particular constraints, like for school projects, for example. Like, it's awesome if it's like, oh, I have this data set here. Here's something completely different I can do with it, and I don't have to retool the initial data set that much. So that's a very economical approach to projects.
Yeah, especially when you don't have a lot of a budget to work with, and you're kind of pulling in favors and doing all that kind of good stuff. It get pretty complicated.
Oh, indeed.
From what I understand, correct?
Yeah, Corpus Christi.
So I ask you about your 2000. What is the like in Texas, by the way?
The main the film industry per se.
Yeah,
probably
your experience,
like the local film scene, kind of.
Oh, it's I don't know if you guys. It's kind of cliquish. Kind of everybody goes in their own little realms and does their things. Kind of very passive aggressive.
So it's like normal life. Nice.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Alrighty.
You got your kind of, people that are real serious minded and want to make a kind of a dramatic, serious film, and people that want to, get a little outside of the lines.
how did you come about for your idea, which ultimately is actually going to be titled something different, correct?
Dark Blood? Yeah, Dark Blood, that was part of the deal, actually. We had gotten some exposure with that project, and recently, it's an 18-year-old film now, but
Oh, wow.
they had asked us to retitle the film for the release, so it went from Dark Blood to Dark Blood of the Vampires, I believe. So that was fine with me. I really too married to the title in any capacity. So, and we started that project, just like anything else, just we were young and ambitious and trying to learn how to do filmmaking. And in the 90s, it was so different because we didn't have computers and digital cameras and stuff. It was learning how to tape edit and using a switcher and a CG and doing it, transferring offline and editing offline. And
so, film, Dark Blood.
What was that?
What'd you say, Dave?
I said, where did you film Dark Blood, per se?
We filmed it in Corpus. We filmed it all around town. We filmed it for over a year. And it was very challenging, especially when you're that young, kind of doing the Kevin Smith route, financing everything with your credit cards and, thinking it's going to be the next big thing and finding out that it's much more harder than that.
Oh, that was sort of one of my favorite moments in the commentary on Cannibal the Musical. Matt and Trey, they're just talking about, it's like, oh yeah, this was this dumb plot point that we thought we had to set up because we hadn't had that script writing class yet. So it makes me think of that.
Yeah. Yeah, you think everything's gold back then. Everything is important. And as you refine everything, you discover it's like, why do we shoot that? What was that important? That was
how did you go about
exactly?
What was that?
Oh no, I was agreeing with you and laughing.
And find your actors for the film. I understand that one of the lead died in 2005.
Yeah, he was a buddy of mine. He was an actor that I met in high school, and we just stayed really close and friends. And once we got the money and the gear to start working on the film, he was immediately cast as the lead. And basically, at the time I was in college, so theater arts classes, friends of friends, that kind of stuff. That's where we found most of the people.
And how was your relationship with the rest of the cast?
Pretty good, actually. We're still, most of us still talk, and I have like a group in Facebook actually where everybody that's worked with us on any of the films is all in one spot, so we can kind of see where everybody's working on at this point, or through the years, for that matter.
Okay.
I mean, you do your best to keep good working relationships with everybody. It's just one of those things, and sometimes everybody gets along, sometimes they don't.
Is there anything that you remember that you'd like to share?
As far as the making of... what was that one more time?
Is there anything that you'd like to share, like an experience that you had on the film that you'd like to share with us?
I think one of the most interesting things about that film is that we were dressed for summer and went into filming in winter. And for the sake of continuity, we're constantly having to keep the same clothes, but the weather was changing and we'd film on some extremely cold. In fact, in one scene, it would go from cold day, hot day. And in Corpus, it's like that. We can go from 80 to 30. We can have snow one day and then completely hot and miserable the next day. And it was very much like that. And we were filming late at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, 30 degrees and T-shirts, and struggling with fake blood all over us and viscera. And it was very challenging, and everybody back then was committed and really putting their all into it. And at the end of the day, you just felt like you really accomplished a lot, and then when you go back into editing, the second part of that, to that point you're making, is as an actor, you start picking up and the way you look, and then you just vow never to act again. So it's like, that was the other thing too, after all that time, filming yourself and filming and whatnot, and then you're in editing and you're just like, oh my God, this is terrible. I hate acting. I hate looking at myself and stuff. So
it's like,
it's definitely
in the shot.
I hate this. Yeah, it's all weird. It's very weird. Especially like you're trying to make everything work, and you're the thing not working.
It's like it's like that line from Gravity Falls. I'd fire you if I could.
Yeah, and then you cast yourself because you'll show up all the time. That was the other thing too. We'd do live casts on actors and aesthetics and stuff like that. A few months with somebody, and then they quit, and then we're like, well, geez, here we go, it's back to square one. Find another person, start over again.
Anyone specifically working with special special effects makeups besides yourself?
Mainly just me. On more recent films, I've had a few people come in on certain days where we had a lot of makeup effects, and we would I'd focus on one, they would focus on another character, and those were the main days where we had maybe a full makeup crew. But a lot of the times I found myself doing everything.
Okay.
Just depends.
Did you have a favorite scene that you like to recall from when you were making Dark Blood? A specific.
I think my favorite scene in the film was just all the vampire stuff, the attack stuff, the meltdown. Those were just fun to do because it's just kids running around acting and blood and makeup, and those are just always fun to do. They're hard, but they're fun.
Yeah.
I remember the day that we filmed the one of the meltdown scenes. It was in the summer, and we had a lot of bugs, and they were very attracted to the syrup. So that was especially excruciating for one of the actors because we were outside for a number of hours, and he was getting attacked by mosquitoes and ants and everything else. Yeah, those are always fun.
Yeah, I noticed you seem to be really into vampires, just as a creature for your work. Is there a reason for that, or?
Well, that's funny because I swear after Dark Blood, it took me about 15 years or so to even consider doing it again. So that was kind of an interesting thing because there's about a 15-year difference between the date and Dark Blood. And it was one of those things when we did the contest for the original date, because we shot one. The whole concept was set up by the South Texas Underground Film Festival to do a movie on a cell phone.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a thing.
Yeah, it was an interesting challenge because you're kind of limited by what your phone can do, number one. And I kept thinking the whole time we were making this thing, I was like, oh, we could do so much better with a different rig. And, it was just like, it's a cool idea, and we're kind of doing it just for this. Maybe we should try later on to, resurrect this, into a bigger film. And that's kind of how it all started from there. But after Dark Blood, I was just like, oh man, no more vampires for a long time. It was quite a while.
Well, a lot of your stuff on YouTube that I saw in autoplay just happened to be vampires. So that's
because there's a lot of stuff that was made for that. We had behind the scenes stuff and makeup effects stuff. And if you're looking at it from an autoplay standpoint, you don't really know what the timeline is, but some of that stuff is quite a few years apart.
Yeah, I was seeing like 2004, 2007, 2014, 2010. It's like a big range.
It's a long time, and it's so weird because I don't think there's not a particular order to that, so it's like it's going around all the way up and down the timeline.
Development and process.
For which film?
For the behind the scenes of the Dark Blood stuff. Like, oh, we need to cover this, Oh, we need to cover that,
Oh, the scripting, the development of the script, that was something we even started in high school. And we progressed once we got into films, took film classes and started to learn. And, any first script, anybody that starts writing, it's always difficult to kind of conceptualize the ending. And,
no kidding.
And we went and shot like 3 different endings or getting close to an ending. And we go back and totally change it. And then throughout the process of filming, we started in October of 1998 and filmed all the way to the beginning of 2000.
Wow.
So within that time, we were, picking up tricks and learning how to do things better. We'd film, do something one way and then do it another way again because we had to for obvious reasons of an actor quitting or something. And as time went on, just started to get the groove going. It just became more of a streamlined thing. Unfortunately, we'd have to start over, but I think in some of the cases we actually did better, and sometimes we were just strapped for time and things did worse. So, and it's just hard to gauge all that, especially when you're that young, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah,
but
I personally, oh, sorry. Go on.
No, I was just saying that, it's that's where you find out it's very important to have a good producer on any project you're working on.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody running the director so they can concentrate.
Well, plus it helps to have a producer who can provide funds and whatnot. When you need it to being a producer myself, I know that. So
right. But I think from certain different aspects of being a producer, whether you're an executive producer or an actual field producer, I think a lot of it is just keeping track of time and people and making sure you make your day. As we started to learn more about the job and working with different people, it is important to make your day. You have these set scenes, these many locations, and you do your best to make your days and make them count.
Definitely. I was just trying to comment on the difficulty of writing, because that's kind of something I have too. And so I was empathizing with, it's like, oh, this ending is cool. Oh, but this one's good too. So. Yeah,
I had a lot of that, and and back then, like with Jay, he was real instrumental on I could bounce ideas. I miss the guy so much because he was so good at like, hey, how does this sound? And it's like, oh, it's okay. If he was into it, you knew you had something, and it's it's like, better go back and work on this and stuff like that. He was very keen on how he wanted the movie to be too. He was a very big part of the development of the film. And having somebody like that to bounce ideas off of, and it's just as big of a horror fan as I was at the time, you get an idea of what's going to work and what's not going to work in some capacity.
Most definitely.
I think at the time I was really into Argento and Fulci and what was coming out of Italy in the late 80s, early 70s, or mid 70s and stuff like that. So we were just watching those movies a lot.
It was a pretty influential
really
period.
Into the. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just got my Suspiria Steelbook today.
Oh yeah, I need to get that.
Oh, man, so pretty. They wrecked my slipcover, but the Steelbook itself is fine. Which, they can just send me another slipcover. So
yeah, Synapse seems like a pretty cool company when it comes to restoration.
Yeah, and it was direct from them too. Like the shipping label even said "Happy Holidays" from Synapse. So it's a cool point bringing up like Suspiria and other Italian films as an influence. I saw the collection the other day, and on the commentary they were talking about how they were influenced. Like they would play the theme from Suspiria like on the set during one scene to like set the mood. Like, did you ever do anything like that during any of your shoots? Or
We were lucky to have enough people to run lights and camera and sound, and if I had the chance, if I had an iPhone with me, it could have been definitely an option. But at the same time, you just never have enough hands on these like 3 or 4 man crew shoots, and it'd be great if we had the time to do that. But then again, you're also recording sound, so everything has to be quiet, so it'd have to be between takes and stuff. So
I think they just ADR'd the music out for the one scene. But
yeah, and at the time, ADRing on tape was pretty hard. Now digitally, it's so much more convenient. So,
project Faceless.
Well, Faceless. How did we get involved with Faceless? Well, it was we originally we had just finished Dark Blood, and we had screened it, and we were doing the rounds with it. And there was a film festival that was building at the time locally, and the guy had some pretty decent gear. He had a Canon XL1, and at the time that was like one of the cameras they have, and we started, and he wanted some locally produced films for the festival. So myself and the guy that played Billy in the film, Ryan Huntz, we both worked side by side making short films specifically for that festival. So that was a lot different. That movie, we had a really good crew, we had a really good cast, and better equipment, better sound, and it came together a lot differently. And it was still challenging within itself, but we went back to the short film format because we didn't have the time between when we started production on that to when the film festival was going to start. So we had to make it short, but we threw everything into it, and we worked on it very hard, and it was fun. And that one's more to me like a giallo, a killer that's faceless. And what was that?
By the way.
That was a festival called the Edgeworks Film Festival.
what is that like an annual festival around Corpus Christi, or?
No, it's defunct now. That one ended, I think, in 2005 or 6, somewhere around there.
Okay.
But that's how we got involved with making that film, and like I said, it was challenging, but it was very, very rewarding, and I think my idea for that was definitely to try to make, again, we were rabid on Italian giallos and horror films at the time, and it was around the same time too, so we were just jump, and I'm very proud of the way it looks, and just the way we put it together was just so much more fluid than what we went through with Dark Blood. Everybody was just more on top of their game.
How was your dealings with that short film, and do you remember a favorite scene from the film itself that you?
A particular scene in Faceless that I enjoyed. I think the ending was the funniest and best part to shoot, because it was just so weird, and we had to throw in all these different effects, which I was trying to quote unquote tone down a little bit, but I ended up doing brains out of the back of a guy's head, and a face that was ripped off, and all that kind of stuff, and then lasers that, or some type of a searing effect around the face, the perimeter of the face, for him to absorb the book or whatever he was trying to do. And that was just fun to shoot. It was hard, but it was fun, and it was just a lot of laughs and a really good time, and it was just very focused on the scene.
Okay. So let's talk about your next film, In the Shadows, from 2007.
In the Shadows, that was a film contest. That was for the CC7 day, and we were in the middle of pre-production on another film because we took some time off. After that, we were just, I started working in television news. I was a photojournalist, and I was real busy, and I just didn't have a lot of time at that point in my life to go back into another film. And then around 2007, I just decided to go back and work on a new film.
Wow.
But at that same time, there was a new entity in town, and they were doing a 7-day contest, and they asked us to be involved. But we didn't really have time, but we got involved anyways, and we decided to not make a horror film, but to make a kind of a film noir. Which was tough in itself. It was just a detective story with a guy trying to keep tabs on a woman that may or not be doing something wrong. And as the movie progresses, you find out it is exactly what it is, but it was with him. It was all a ruse.
And you know what I found with different directors? Sometimes sometimes in order to get back into their groove, they got to go into another project, be different than their norm. I think that.
Yeah, I think it helped focus a little bit. Yeah, it refocused.
Yep.
And it kind of drove you kind of more into it.
Even though you'd like to terrify everyone, sometimes going into you learn things. So,
yeah, that was the first time I had worked with another writer. Actually, somebody else besides myself or anybody on my team at that point to write, and it was interesting to kind of attack the material and figure it out.
That is something I did want to ask. Like, what's your general approach just to writing, in particular, like writing dialogue after you've got like a plot line figure out, or just kind of what's your process, I suppose, just overall?
At first, I was I'd say I was a control freak and wanted to control the writing, but I think the best material that I've done again is bouncing off of people I'm working with, and and kind of in a collaborative process, go through draft 1, draft 2, and get people that I know and trust to work on a script with me, and we kind of come up with the and it's hard to not make a movie sound to be like Kevin Smith or anybody like Ryan Johnson or Doug Liman or anything like that, trying to be so hip and ape somebody's style.
Was Ryan Johnson was Ryan Johnson new Star Wars guy?
Yeah, Ryan Johnson, he had done that indie film Brick, and they had a very unique way of talking in that film. It was just an interesting way of talking, I should say.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, poor Gareth Edwards did Rogue One, so.
Don't get me started with stars right now.
We could have had Godzilla too. Why? Why? Tears. Just tears coming out of my face.
Are we still? I believe it's still on the slate at some point, isn't it? Godzilla, or is it going to be in
it should be
crossover film?
Well,
I think
there was a my favorite opinion on this is from a Facebook post. Somebody was like, "Oh, I'm going to see the new King Kong movie," and one of the first comments with like a dozen or so likes, it's like, "Stay through the credits for the best orgasm you've ever had." And I was like, "What are they talking about?" And then you see like the end credit scene is Kong's not the only king, and then it's just like cave paintings of Godzilla fighting other monsters, and it's like
setting up their expanded universe.
I'm okay with this. It's gonna be great. Yeah.
I'm fine with it too. I mean, honestly, it leads into it one, because the Marvel ones work so well, and Star Wars is kind of hit or miss. DC, same thing, hit or miss. But
Mostly miss.
Whenever you're trying to set up these kind of universes, it's either going to sink or swim. You know, you never know.
Brick is an appropriate title. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Well,
going back to writing. Writing's really kind of like you have to really lock everything down. And if it's not on page, it's not on stage. You know that whole saying. So
do you ever let any one of your actors?
Are they improvising? Yeah, I mean, my whole thing about improv is that if they can do it and they can keep it consistent, I'm all for it. Because then it becomes an editing problem. True. And a consistency problem. But if they can do something better, they can come up with a better line and make it their own. I'm not so married to my screenplay if it's not working in capacity to what's going on the set, and we need to fix things and stuff. That's always a possibility at any time.
Okay.
And trusting your actors too.
Have you gotten anything particularly? What's your favorite like improv thing from any of your works that somebody put in there? Like, did anybody do anything that you're like, oh, that's brilliant, I love this? Like, does anything like that stand out in your mind?
I think when we were doing the Kukui film, I think there was a point where we had to really kind of figure out the character a little bit better, and most of that bit where he's talking to the girl and telling her fate was kind of added on afterwards because we needed that kind of tension, and it just wasn't in the script, and that was figured out right on the set. We had a bit of it on what was that?
Oh, I was just sort of commenting, just sort of like the "this is why I'm here, killing you" kind of thing.
Kind of explaining it, but kind of just bringing it out. You know, the whole point of the film. Yeah. And I mean, if it's like one of those things too, where like you know, the lines need to be changed just because of the scene. You know, nothing really stands out in my mind. You know, everybody's pretty consistent. You know.
Sweet.
So, what's your next film, Patton?
Well, we did one. We did a film between it, One Dark Night, and that was the between in the Shadows and Pen. And One Dark Night was actually one of our bigger films, and we spent a lot of time with that. And that was the problem with the script. That I can say right off the bat, we had a heavy beginning, and then all the action was in the middle. And now in hindsight, I would have shortened that beginning and gone right to the horror more succinctly. But you know, it was one of those films. It was just it was one of those things where we learned a lot, and that's what led into Pen. And Pen, you know, we're trying to do something a little different, and that was more of like a suspense and thriller type movie mixed in with supernatural and curses and all that kind of stuff and everything. And it's one of my favorites in terms of just what it's about and how it came about too.
It reminded me a little bit of. I have two notes on the short. After I watched it, so it reminded me a little bit of like the Rick and Morty like quick mysteries kind of thing they do. It's like, here's a quick mystery. It's like, wow, this is moving along pretty quick. All right, neat. And then the other one was like Tales from the Cheap Mall, a la like Tales.
Oh yeah.
Like it kind of made me think of
Tales from the Dirt Mart. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. I couldn't think of a better phrase. But yeah, I liked it. It was bit of a Threat of the 13th the series sort of vibe too, of like the cursed object.
Right, and it's about juju. It's like sending out bad juju, getting things, you know, inappropriately, and it kind of following you, and then your life starts falling apart, and you don't know why, and then you find out why, and it's all crap kind of situation. And that was kind of fun to play around with. And it was also a challenge to learn to say more in less time.
You did a pretty good job of that, I think, too.
I think so too.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Did you did now you no you do you have said that you do your own special effects and whatnot. Was there anything in particular that you remembered in any of your projects that you had a lot of fun making special effects?
Special effects are, it was kind of one of those things where, like, I learned it at 13, and it was like reading the Savini books and stuff, and just you got to learn how to put it on, how it works on film, and how it photographs, and all that kind of stuff. And over the years, the stuff in Darkblood was, at the time, some of the most advanced makeup we had done. And it was fun to do, especially with the eyes and the teeth and the messed up faces. And then Faceless, I think we were a little under the gun, and we had to do a lot for a lot less time. So I would have probably gone back and reworked that. I think some of the best gags that we had were on One Dark Night, Pen, and Kukui, and then later on we had some really, really great gags on Muerte, which, some of that was, just fun putting them together, using new materials, and it's always neat. Every project, starting from the sculpting to the fabrication to the application, and seeing how it comes to life is just always a treat.
Most definitely, especially since a lot of times, sometimes you have storyboards where well, I don't know whether you got storyboards or whatnot, but I figure it's a process, and
yeah, it's yeah, everything takes shape. Yeah, it's a beautiful process when it all comes together. It's amazing.
Alrighty, so even though you did talk a little bit about El Cuy, let's talk about El Cuy from 2012, which evidently is ending up in your Los Muertos tales.
Yeah, it's not that film per se. We kind of, what we did was we went back and reimagined it for this film.
Oh, okay.
And because we needed the time too, we needed to kind of experiment a little bit with the storylines. And it was originally supposed to be that story, but then we changed it around, and we wanted to go back and add something to it and make it much more vibrant and a little crazier and all that kind of stuff. And Kukui itself, back in 2012, it was that time we were really trying to tell shorter tales and do more storytelling in less time, instead of being a little over elaborate in a 30-minute short film, because you have better shots with doing 5 to 10 minute shorts than you can with these longer ones. And sure enough, Penn did really well. We got screened a lot of times, so then we kind of kept it going, using kind of the same themes and some of the same characters, and bringing them back into Kukui. And a buddy of mine at the time was joking with me that he wouldn't watch any of my films because he doesn't like Kukui films. And I was like, I never really done a Kukui film, and then it just kind of clicked from there. And then that's how the process came about. And then we wrote a story about a bad little girl that doesn't listen, was warned as a child, and then she grows up and she kills her quote unquote lover for some drugs, and she keeps having these kind of weird flashbacks back to that time when she was younger, and then the warnings, and sure enough, the actual entity is after her and missed her and wants her now.
Did you have a specific?
I had been wondering, like, if there was any kind of like particular influence on that, like if it was like a folklore kind of thing, or.
Yeah, the folklore is, it's like anywhere, we have our tales of the boogeyman, and in South Texas it's Kukui and Cuckoo, and all over. It's a Latin American version of Freddy Krueger, or that kind of thing. But the ideal about it, because it's hard to kind of figure out what it looks like, so we kind of took it into a scary, dirty man that is like kind of evolving in looks too. So he goes from just being dirty and scary to dirty and grimy, bad teeth, and it just becomes more elaborate.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Almost a little like the Babadook or something.
Yeah, but you never really got to see him.
Well, I don't know. It's on my mind. I got my LP of that today.
How did you go about your casting with El Kui?
Casting went about because one of my actresses, she had been in a few movies already. She had been in a movie called Bad Kids Go to Hell, and she had been in a horror movie called Aconite with Reggie Bannister and Linnea Quigley and a couple other cats in that film. And she's a big horror fan, and she saw Penn and wanted to do the next one. And I said, well, when we do the next one, we'll definitely get you in there and stuff. And it kind of came about from that. And then at the time I was working at a TV station, so we have a lot of people that want to be in films and stuff. So that's how we cast the Kukui. And my buddy Will had already been in 2 of my films, and he's just a good. I call him my Kenny. I kill him every time, or every time I can. I torture him.
Is that the
He's
guy
got
with
to die in some way.
Is that the guy with the with that chain necklace? He was in
Yeah.
everything I saw.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's my Kenny. I got to kill him every time, and it's got to be painful.
Get him in the eye.
It's got to be some kind of get him in the eye, get him in the throat, blow up his face. Yeah, whatever we can do to him.
Every time.
Most of the time, yeah.
It makes me think of there's this thing called How It Should Have Ended, and they just take movies and make animations of how they think it should have ended. And the one for Beowulf, the 2009 Beowulf, was just a montage of every time he should have died. It's how it should have ended. Crushed.
I keep joking that I'm going to do that to him. I keep joking with him. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a montage of all of his greatest hits at some point.
It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. Totally do it.
Yeah, I know. I saw that one. That's great. I got to figure out how to encapsulate his life, his death, that way.
Maybe shoot
so
an
hard
extra
to say,
dozen
right?
maybe shoot an extra dozen or so just for that project.
It's always kind of disappointing to him when he doesn't die, and I was like, well, can't die all the time, right? So, but one of these days, I'm just going to make his head's going to explode, or his body's going to completely crumble to pieces. Or actually, he in Muerte, or The Date, his segment in the film, he goes through a lot. And it's much more elaborate than the other short. So he was in a lot of pain. I'll tell you that right now. He suffered quite a bit for his art.
Well, art is suffering.
Well,
or is it supposed to be?
Let's talk about
He's mostly...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, most of the time he's a good sport about it.
Most of the time. That makes me think of some of the interviews from Devil's Rejects, where Bill Moseley was like, "Hey, Rob, I'm having kind of a hard time with this one scene here," and Rob Zombie was just like, "Art isn't safe. Now go shove the gun in that girl's." Well, it's
safe and rarely ever comfortable too. So
it's a perfect example of that.
It's a very good example of it. But as you were saying,
let's talk about your short film from 2012, The Last Weekend.
The Last Weekend. That was an interesting film. That film came about because we had this crazy notion that we could do something in 2 days, and it was a 48-hour film competition for the South Texas Underground. The same people that did the cell phone film too. And the contest, and this one was kind of hard because they gave us we had to pick out of these Mexican Loterita cards, and whatever was on those cards you had to include into the film, and that one was a canoe, or oh god, what do you call it?
Kayak.
Anyways, it turned out to be a boat or a canoe or something. I forgot what it was called on the card. Escapes me at the moment. So we had 48 hours to come up with a story, put our cast together, shoot it, edit it, and put it in that screening by Sunday night. And we started Friday, I believe. And it was if you've interviewed any of these guys that have done these 48-hour contests, it is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any problems with finding your cast for the film, or was it just another thing where you just kind of knew some people?
This one was interesting because the scene was set up with like a kind of like a pool of actors and filmmakers and people that wanted to be on teams and stuff like that. But I had already brought people I'd worked with, and so we already had the shorthand. We knew what we were capable of, and so we went for it. And we all of us collaborated on the script. We all collaborated on the shooting, and it was miserable because it was 100 and something degrees that day, and some of us were a little heat stroked and delirious, including myself, and got pretty good sunburns, and you know, I guess too, when we're filming out in the elements, you know, our sound guy, poor guy, I always rag on him about this, but he just wasn't quite on top of his game with recording on-set audio, and we ended up having to go back and ADR in about 90% of the film, which, you know, at the time was just like another thing we didn't want to have to worry about in a 48-hour film. So it was really tricky, but it was fun because it's just the 100% creativity in 48 hours, you know, just getting in there and telling a story that fast.
The editing process in your films, do you enjoy it a lot, or?
I enjoy it when the computer's not dying on me. That was one of the tougher ones too. We had a computer that was fritzing out on that one. But generally, yes, I do enjoy editing quite a bit. That's my primary. Well, I can say it's my primary, but it's one of my primary jobs now, even to this day, and with my job and stuff. So, but it was fun. Like I said, it was just a great project to work on, and I had a lot of fun on it. And
did you have a favorite scene that you wanted to recall from
the throat slashing scene in that one? That was kind of intense. You know, we were really working that one out, and that was the best part, I think, you know, for us, was the setup. And then, of course, too, it's like while they're out committing this murder, there's a zombie apocalypse developing behind them or ahead of them. And of course, once the movie kind of reveals the other half of the film, it's like, oh shit, you know, there's this huge zombie apocalypse right developing around us. That was kind of interesting too, because we were trying to find extras, and we found a bunch of punk rockers, and they all kind of looked like Return of the Living Dead, and that was kind of fun.
Cool. Well, let's talk about your next film from 2012 called Ella and Krista's Night Out.
Yeah, Ella and Krista. That one was kind of the same thing. We had an extra day, and we thought, oh, well, we have the extra day. It'd be a lot easier to do, right? No, it wasn't. That one too, it was a continuation because we did that about a month later, and that film was we had to select the genre, and then we had to get a thing out of the same card deck. So we picked a buddy film, and we picked the card of the drunk, the borracho. So we had to make a movie around those two things, and so we decided to make a buddy film, but about two girls that are buddies, and basically they're looking for a good time and hanging out, and they go partying, and they kind of run afoul of this drunk dude that wants to start a bunch of shit with everybody, and turns into quite a grisly encounter for them, essentially. So
alrighty.
I think Will actually got disemboweled in that one, I believe.
Nice.
Dustin, did you want to ask him?
Oh yeah, I got a few things just from going off the channel. So I saw the date, and I thought that was pretty good. Like, I liked the way you kind of set up, that there was something like off about the two girls right away with their eyes like changing like very
Right.
subtly for a few shots. I really liked the effects you used on that. Uh, I also kind of just noticed a few other things too. Like when she's like getting ready to leave her apartment, I was like, wow, that door is really filthy. Like, what is that? Is that set design or?
That was kind of incidental accidents, actually, but yeah.
And also the scene where it's like, she calls him and it's like her roommate is just like just like killing that guy on the bed.
Right.
I noticed there's a lot of like stuff in the backgrounds in a lot of these, and I was
that
like,
was her art.
That was her art?
Yeah, she was an artist. She does all of her own art, and so her room ended up becoming a big set dressing.
Well, that was cool. I mostly just noticed that she was watching Ed, Ed, and Eddie like on the TV. I could see like the title, and it's like, what the fuck? It's an interesting choice for killing people too. And then I liked how you. I was expecting a twist ending, but not that twist ending, and it was like, oh, okay. It's a little.
Yeah, that
was
weird. Now you see kind of why I had to go back and redo that, or not redo it, but and amplify it, I should say, because
the date is also ending up in the. Not.
What?
Ending up in the anthology. That's
yes,
why?
yes, it's the centerpiece of or one of the centerpieces of the film.
Cool.
Basically, what I did with that film, and I'll talk a little bit about it. But if you've seen the date, you kind of think you know what you. You kind of know a little bit about it and what's going to happen for the first part. And it kind of follows the same pattern. If that, and I consider that date the Easter egg. So now, if you have seen that and you're watching the new one, then the second half of the movie even goes in further, in much more detail. And
okay,
we kind of, I don't want to give too much away, but there's more of them, and there's more of him. In a way, I should say, and it
was pretty strongly implied by the ending, yeah.
Yeah, so there is that movie had the biggest budget out of them all. So we had, I'll just tease a little few things about it. We have a lot more gore, we have a lot more meltdowns, we have gun fights, we have every weird conceivable thing you can do on a date that would turn that night into something completely different. And then the casting was a lot different on that one too. We had, we got a lot of local theater actors, and they really did a great job. And there's a cameo by the Kukui in there too, but he's kind of lurking in the background, but you don't know who he is. He just looks like some dude. And it all ties together, and Will plays at this time as a very lost soul, and I really love that, because he the more you find out about his character, he is lost, and there's a lot more to it, and I'm just really excited for people to check that out, because it's one of the movies that we really worked very hard on. The makeup design is much more elaborate.
I'm looking forward to checking that out.
Project or two to One Dark Night from 2012. How did you? Oh
yeah. We filmed it in 2007. We released it finally in 2012. Yeah, man. Oh wow. That one we had a lot. We had a lot going into it. It was a big production. It was crazy. It was cool, and but looking back at it now, it's one of those things as a filmmaker you kind of learn about pacing, and that was the beauty of Penn and Kukui and The Date and Ellen Krista and The Last Weekend. The pacing on those films were a lot zippier, and this film had this kind of like slow burn build up, and two, I think at the time I was going through something personally, and it translated into the film as just like, if you're having tough times and you're approached by somebody that's willing to give you the magic bullet for your problems, but at what cost? which is it's kind of a morality tale. And of course, that cost is your firstborn, your soul, and the next guy in line, which is the poor schmuck that's with the girl. And and then the second part of the movie is him trying to get away from her, even though he's under the impression that he had murdered her, and the brother wants revenge. He's seeking him out and trying to kill him. And then, sure enough, her reanimated corpse shows up on his doorstep. So.
No. Did you have a favorite scene from One Dark Night that you'd like to share with us?
The entire scene with we did this really elaborate fight scene, and there was a lot of running, a lot of jumping, breaking bottles, shooting, stabbing, and then somebody got their chest gouged out. And it was intensely technical. I mean, we had a big crew on that film. We had, 3 pretty relatively well-rounded actors on that scene, and there was just so much going on technically. It was like an orchestration of a lot of different effects and a lot of different shots, and trying to make it all look real. And especially the ripped throats and stuff. And that was a challenge too. That was fun. Like I said, it was just a lot of orchestrating things and getting the effects to work and stuff, and just perfecting it the best we could.
Great angles.
Lots of angles, yeah. Shooting different ways, many different ways.
Awesome.
Angles, Batman.
The Night Before from 2014. How did you get involved with that one? And that's the film that you showed Cinema Epic guys. Hey,
right? Yeah. They got to see it advanced. Basically, the night before, we were coming off of because Kukui had won some awards, and we got a lot of play out of that. I think we played at quite a few festivals and stuff. So we had a decent budget for that. And my idea for that film was to kind of take a few riffs off of some of the stuff that we had done and put it into kind of like a story that could kind of interconnect a little bit. So it's about all these should I say, can I cuss on this?
Go ahead.
You're more than welcome.
It's basically a bunch of assholes in a bar. They're all dangerous people. So you have the Black Widow, the girl killing a bunch of guys for money. You have the Baracho getting drunk in the same bar from the night before. The Ellen Krista, he's there again, but this is before he got beat up. You have the guy and the girl from the last weekend plotting to murder the blonde girl. They're there too. And you have this guy that's a demon, that's an asshole to his girlfriend, and you find out something's wrong with him. It turns out that he was in a band and he wants to be successful, and he sold his soul. The band hasn't taken off yet, and he keeps turning into a monster, and he just doesn't know why. Too.
He's a demon with a band.
Yeah. And he's just he's just having a bad night. All these people are just having a bad night.
Yeah.
And so so that film is more of like a to me it's just a really crazy romp. It's not so much of a horror film as kind of like an action thriller action thriller comedy with this demon running around too. And it played really well when we screened it, and a lot of people enjoyed it, and I'm really proud of it, and I'm really looking forward to releasing that at some point and getting it some play, because it has some really funny scenes and some really gory stuff and some really funny stuff. So, or just out there, and it was really fun to make. It was challenging, but I really had a good time on that film, and good time with the cast. Everybody was so good on that one, and we're just cool. I'm really excited about it, and as soon as possible when we get everything situated with Muerte, we'll have that one coming right after it. So it was originally supposed to be in Muerte, but it just didn't fit. It just didn't seem like the right fit for so many vampires and demons and witches and stuff like that. It seemed like it's its own thing in itself.
Could possibly grow into something else. You never know.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I haven't really. Well, I have actually, but yeah, nothing yet. Nothing solid. Let's just put it that way.
Most definitely. A day to tale, love, horror, and revenge, because we did talk about those, but
yeah.
Your short film Mirror.
And then, yeah, well, actually, Mirror, Date, and Mirror and Date, and then the Muerte segment, and all of them are connected, and they're all part of this storyline, along with how do I explain this? So essentially, all these movies are connected, and
will be coming out on the Cinema Epic release.
Right. Yes, and I'm trying to tell it to where I don't give anything away, where it doesn't get too complicated either.
But yeah,
so
and you don't want to
the Kukui too, as well as just like, and part of Pan as a flashback and stuff. So basically, these guys are doing some bad stuff, and they go to the same shop that we've seen in Pan and Kukui and whatnot, and they steal from this lady, and she puts a curse on it, and they're having a party. They're trying to do a seance, and they have these hot girls coming over and stuff like that. But at the same time, they done some other girls wrong, and they are putting a spell on them. So everything's just going wrong, and it's gonna boil into these tales to where at the end of the movie that whatever they're reading in the comic book comes to life. So then the Kukui comes after them, the vampires come after them. So everything comes after them, essentially.
Okay.
Lightning rod.
And it becomes it becomes a lightning rod of bad juju, if that makes any sense. And there's some really interesting twists too, especially with some of the aforementioned characters from the other films too, because Ophelia's in this one too, from Pan and Kukui, but she's got a much more detailed part.
I kept thinking that was like your mom or something.
Cool.
That's actually a friend of mine. She works at she's a friend of work, I guess. Yeah.
Neat.
And she's just got a great look, and she's a great actress, so I just enjoy working with her.
Oh, she was pretty good. I was just like, wow, his mom can act. Neat.
Definitely looks like be an interesting film for the 2018 year.
Yeah, it's got a lot. I mean, if you're looking for action, we got a lot of action sequences. If you're looking for horror, we definitely got a lot of horror, and a lot of jump scares. I was really the first movie I really started getting into trying to offset the audience with jump scares, and
okay.
One of my favorite gags in the film, I can give this one away, is something with scissors. So,
well,
yeah, scissors are always fun.
Projects that you have, or anything in the future that you wanted to share?
Well, definitely getting Muerte out there, and this is our first time to really work with a distributor and getting the film out there, and again too, I want people to check it out and see everything about the film, because if you've seen anything that we've done before, there are ties to it, but we've definitely made it much more bigger and more elaborate. This is way more bigger and elaborate, and at some point we have in development right now, we want to take a Kukui and make something out of him specifically, where he's just not just one of the characters, but actually the character for a film. And we're working on a screenplay for that. We've been working on that for a while, actually, but this kind of came to us in a weird sort of way. So now we can kind of go back and fill in some more of the blanks that we wanted to kind of address from the other films.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that you came on and discussed much of your films that you've done. I definitely enjoyed hearing you explain some of the and whatnot, and I think you enjoyed yourself, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's always fun to talk about them and to get the word out. I guess the exposure is the biggest thing. And I very much appreciate you getting the word out for us. And it's tough. Some days are it's like, are we anybody noticing these things, and are we on the right path and stuff? So it's definitely it's definitely trying to keep focus.
Definitely, and maybe more towards the cinema epic release, I can have you back on, and we can, a bit more people about it. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
Again, time and all you listeners out there, look forward to his. That are coming out on Cinema Epic, and definitely keep a lookout for Christopher Ambriz's films out there. You can check some of them out on YouTube as well. This is a moment where we kind of who we are and what we do. So I'm going to start with you, Chris. Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself, your company, and
Just tell us who you are and what you do.
Right. Okay.
Talk about your film company.
Yeah, Night Creature Productions. We started in 1998 with my buddy Luis Alvarado. We were just horror fans. We wanted to make horror films. At the time, they weren't really popular, and we just kind of took it by the horns and started producing films, starting with Dark Blood and then Faceless. And we're on our 13th film, which is Muerte, and this is coming out in 2018. So obviously, almost the 20th anniversary, I believe, of our company. And cool. We've done music videos, we've done commercials, we've done everything. So I've been a photojournalist and work in public relations and newspaper and stuff like that. So that's my professional background, what I do for a living.
Dustin, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a film collector and fan. I live in Milwaukee, and I'm going to UWM for a variety of different things. Suffering through finals week right now, but we're coming along pretty well. You can follow my collection Instagram, DHR Hunter, all one word. So I've been trying to post the huge pile of things that I've picked up since I started doing this. And as soon as the semester is up, I'm going to be uploading an unbelievably large number of pictures. So go check that out. So right now,
how many things do you have?
How many things do I have?
Yeah, how many objects or how many collections do you have?
They're kind of all over the place. It's sort of hard to count. I think I have well over 100 movies, and I think I'm maybe approaching that number with figures. I have a few signed things. I have well, here's kind of an idea of what we've got. So a few weeks ago, I found a figure 2-pack. It's Michael Myers as a kid and Michael Myers like as an adult, like in the costume. And it's signed by Tommy Lee Wallace, Mike Sidin, who played young Michael, and Nick Castle. And this past weekend, I was in the same place, and turned out they had more than one, except the one they have on display now was signed by Tony Moran, too. So that's one of the things that I have now. I have to sell one of them, and I'm not sure which one. I've got vinyls. I have a handful of imports. I've got this really nice Wicker Man steelbook that I can't watch because I can't get the Region 3 thing to work yet. I don't know. It's a big collection, and I'm really looking forward to sharing more of it.
No, I need to look at your Instagram. I'm a big collector too, as you mentioned before the show started. There was something of mine that you're interested in.
Oh yeah, you have the. There are two versions of the thing from the movie Maniacs line, and one of them is the Blair thing. One of them is the Blair thing, And then the other one is Norris, which has the spider creature. And I noticed it in one of your behind-the-scenes video on the shelf, and he's like, that's the one. So I know where I can get one locally, but they want almost double its value, and they won't go down to where it's still not $20 overpriced. So it's like,
right.
As soon as I
the
saw
only
it,
problem with this stain figure is there's a lot of yellowing on the plastic on the
that one?
protection around it. Yeah, not on the actual toy, but the actual around it.
That was a big problem with that line. Like, some of them are just, like, stained beyond belief. It's like, were people just blowing smoke on them or what, you know? Supposedly sunlight
I think
had
it's the sun.
factor.
Yeah.
Well,
I have one of the original Freddy Kruegers with the blood stains all over the plastic, too.
Oh, cool.
And the parents got all mad about that.
The one I have is just from the movie Maniacs line, but he's bloody.
Right.
I really lucked out. They were one of the first horror figures I picked up. I won an eBay auction in 2012 for the bloody variants of Freddy, Leatherface, and Jason from movie Maniacs. Like, they were all loose out of the box, but I was so happy, and that kind of kicked everything off.
Oh, those always make nice set pieces.
They're so good. But we could probably talk about that forever, so we should probably let Dave
talk. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I run Movies Galore Milwaukee, which is a local blog site where I write reviews. And I run Inside Movies Galore here, and it's really successful when it comes to the private interviews. So I appreciate your time again, Chris. I'm also a small-time producer. I'm actually one of the tagged in Brad Twiggs for 2018 coming out.
Is that the Wrestle Massacre?
Wrestle Massacre. I'm one of the. There are many tagged with him, but I into the project for him, so decent relationship with him. So.
And how did you become kind of like a philanthropist, I guess, in a way, for this kind of production?
Well, I started realizing that you could actually get producer, titles. This was when I was starting to write reviews, and I've got about 150 reviews out now. So, which is relatively. A 2 year a 2 to 3 year span. So, Christmas one year, I bought myself into a short film called Video Box, which basically a storyline where lightning strikes a VHS store and. Characters come alive and they fall in love and they're like the opposite of each other, and then they jump off into to another film at the end. I don't know whether it was made into a feature yet, but I think it was made for the premise of it becoming into a feature, and it's directed by a couple of guys from. I've never had any.
That sounds like there's a band called Gunship. It's like a synthwave band, and that sounds a lot like one of their videos. Like, it was a claymation by Lee Hardcastle. It's called Tech Noir. Like, that sounds a lot like the plot of Tech Noir.
But to name one of the films that was lining their VHS store, so that was kind of cool. I had a. I like to lick my fiance's toes. I came up with a title called "Attack of the Killer Toe Licker" or something like that. And when they sent me a copy of the thing on VHS, they sent me with a flip side with like this whole like synopsis of the film. It was fake, but it was still pretty cool for memorabilia.
That is. Yeah, you can never ask for any kind of like memorabilia that way. Yeah. And curiosity, it's like, how did Darkblood come into your fold?
YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah,
People
you'd be
are watching.
surprised how much value YouTube
Yeah.
has.
Yeah. See, as a cinephile, I normally just kind of just scan YouTube from time to time, and all of a sudden, boom! I say,
Neat.
and then before I even wrote it up or whatnot, I contacted you, and things played out. But kind of how I started, building some kind of a repertoire with my production stuff. I'd see something that I really liked, and for $30 to $50, I'd grab a producer title. And now I towards a fan film for Friday the 13th, which is called Friday the 13th Legacy, I believe, which will be coming out soon.
I think I saw something about that.
It's a film called Vulps. A little bit. I liked the concept for it and whatnot. And it's from a young guy who had money for it. But
it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough, but it will get made. And that towards the basement, I put money towards a few. Profile is out there for people to see, but I'm going to be. I just worked as a producer on Dane L's short film, The Angler, which I go into too much detail about that, but I'm a producer of that, and I might be working with my podcast. He did a film called
Eternus,
and I really liked it. And it was a silent film, and the way he did it and whatnot, I wanted to see more, and he was just not getting some of the funding that he needed. I told him I'd help him out on a few of his future started. So, he working on putting together a clown short film with him. So we're hoping on getting it submitted to the Clownsploitation film that I think Tony Newton together. But those are the things that I've been working on. But,
these projects take so long. I think each, the shorter ones not so long, but like the features take. If you don't have the budget, you have the time, right? So it's about like a year and a half.
The way that I work as a producer is I can only put like $50 here, $100 there, because I work every 2 weeks anyways. But I've enjoyed of the films that I've been able to put money towards, even though some of them I haven't entirely liked. But that's part of the process of learning what is and what isn't a good thing to put your money into. So
right, we had done a Indiegogo campaign.
Oh yeah,
and that was interesting. That was an interesting process. It's we raised enough to get started. Especially with the facts. I think that's mostly what we spent the money on.
With Indiegogo projects is you have to know a hell of a lot of groups to send them to, and you can't just posting like the post, and to get people's reaction. Do as much as you can advertise.
It's an interesting process. I don't know if it's totally effective or not, but it at least got
entirely
started.
Effective, but it kind of what is it? It gains some kind of momentum,
right?
And you're successful about it. Then people will act. I would say after your cinematic releases, I would say the best thing that you could probably do is the next film that you do after that. Go your next film and see what happens. You build on that momentum.
Right. And too, it's just I think it's become more and more important for me to have a story to tell that I want to tell.
Exactly.
That really kind of hits what I'm going for.
And here I am just bidding on that lithograph that came with the. And here everybody's like talking about like all this like great stuff they're doing in terms of like movie making, and here I am, I'm on eBay like bidding on an overpriced lithograph that came with the Shout Factory 15 disc Halloween. I don't do anything. Suck.
A movie reviewer when you interviewed Mr. Chris here, so I think you did a good job. So
yeah, I'm an interviewer now. I guess.
Yeah, it's cool to be kind of bouncing off of people about stuff like that too, because I don't ever. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to talk about, but you guys definitely made me think a lot about what it was too.
Yeah, and taking notes and reviewing the person's body of work helps too. So I think we did a pretty good job. That's a meme.
You guys. That's a meme. I keep forgetting that like some of the movies are out of sequence, so it's like, oh yeah, I had to go back to that one. Yeah.
Most definitely. So in any case, thank you for coming on. I'm going to end this now, but ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. If you're out there listening, and hopefully you can stay tuned to when the Cinema Epic releases his film. So take care, everyone, and say good night, everyone.
Like, share, and subscribe. We need you to do it. Like, share, and subscribe, and like his stuff too. Oh yeah. Good night, I guess.
Good night.